Grantchester Meadows, agenda item number 10, and Alan Jones and Councillor Cantrell come to this table, please. The case officer on this item is Charlotte Burton. So, Charlotte, will you introduce this item, please?
Thank you, Chair. This is number 1 on Grantchester Meadows. It's an application that you've seen before. It's for a proposed roof extension and installation of solar panels on outbuilding. So this is the site, just to remind you, number 111, and this is the outbuilding adjacent to the property known as Inner Street on the South Road, and we are within the new cross conservation area. So just to remind you of the site, this is the existing garage. And just to remind you as well that the scheme was amended during the course of the application, so it was reduced from this non-pitched roof to this asymmetric, which has lowered the roof height, and it would be the south-facing slope which would be covered with solar panels. So the application was previously referred by the committee for more information regarding the type of solar panels that would be installed, and I've since received specification from the applicants showing that it would be 15 different individual solar panels, which would project approximately 35 mil from the roof slope. So that's the information that I've been given from the applicant, and I've recommended an extra condition number 4, which would control the installation to this specification which you're considering before you. So just to remind you of the context of the conservation area, it's this site here. So the conservation team support the proposal, and also relevant, just consider that since the previous committee, an application has been approved for creation of an annex following demolition of this existing consulting room. And just to put that in context on the site plan, that's the existing consulting room, so the annex would be immediately adjacent to the existing garage. So that's a material change since the previous discussion. So the recommendation from officers remains for approval subject to conditions.
Alan Jones.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. I live at 106 Grantchester Meadows, opposite the applicant, and 20 metres from the bottom of South Green Road. I'm also a member of the South Newham Neighbourhood Forum, one of your statutory consultees. I'm deputising for Mrs. Bagshaw of number 7 South Green Road, who is working away from Cambridge this week. I was alongside her on the 30th of August when she presented the very strong local objections to this proposal summarised in section 7 of your committee report. So I'm rather surprised to be here again, as the committee voted 6-2 against the application in this form. Our understanding was that the committee would give the applicant time to provide more details of the type of panel proposed. If the panels were of the latest design that looked like slates, the committee would reconsider the application. But if they were of the standard type, black reflective silicon, the application would be refused. It is clear that they are of the standard type, each 1.25 square metres in size, 15 of them covering 20 square metres. The facts are clear. This is a sensitive site in a conservation area on the urban-rural boundary. Most of South Green Road is a well-preserved Edwardian terrace of 9 houses, which the pictures before you didn't do justice to. 7 of these houses, several of them have been referred to meet planning requirements, with no change to the facades. Residents contrast their concession on refurbishment to what is proposed, a bank of panels on a single-storey garage, unlike any other panels in the conservation area. They point out the scale, prominence and visibility of the structure, its effect on the view of South Green Road, and its enclosing and overshadowing impact on the house next door. These facts are all acknowledged in your committee report, but the officer's opinion is that they are not significant. Local residents and the neighbourhood forum strongly disagree. They are unanimous that the proposal will harm the character and appearance of the conservation area, contrary to Development Plan Policy 411, and it will have an adverse effect on the residential amenity of the neighbouring properties. We therefore ask the committee to confirm its refusal of this application. We also think there is an issue of precedent here, which may not be deemed relevant today, but is of concern.
Mr. Jones, I'm going to have to interrupt you. You had more than your 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir.
So I think we've got the gist of what you want to say. Councillor Cantrell.
Thank you, Chair. And just by way of background, I called this application in August, and so I'm here again to speak in relation to the application. Firstly, I don't have a problem with the principles of solar panels in general, in use. I'm certainly a supporter of sustainable energy, but we also have to take into account the critical issue of certain parts of the city which have a planning standard in a conservation area, that we need to be sensitive of the built form on which we're proposing to put such solar panels. And I think this application is one of those such applications. In relation to the position of the building, I think that's a fundamental component in terms of evaluating this proposal, Chair. The building is at right angles perpendicular to the street scene, and so actually as one walks up South Green Road you will have visibility, and the officer acknowledges in 8.6 that it will be prominent to the street scene. You will have visibility of a black monotonous panel which forms the solar panels, and if the committee recalls, there was a debate in terms of the square meterage of what this monotonous black shade would be, and it's highlighted in the revised application. It's 20 square metres. Now you may say, well, actually that is something that we're prepared to accept in order for this application to go forward. But what I'd like to highlight to the committee is that this is a really sensitive street. And it's not because the individual built forms themselves are of magnificent architectural value. It's the relationship that the overall built form has with the street, and importantly with the countryside which is opposite the street. The street itself is only built on one side, and then the other side you have college fields. And it's the sensitive relationship between the built form and the rural environment that is basically summarised in this street. And I think for the committee you have to decide whether that is a compromise that you're prepared to accept in relation to this scheme and this proposal. In the previous committee chair, the conclusion was the committee, my interpretation at the meeting was that the committee voted against it, and what happened is there was a discussion then as to whether or not there was a product that would meet the issues of around the conservation area. And my understanding was that you, chair, and the officers would go away and get clarification from the applicant as to the nature of product that would be used. Now, as a ward council chair, my final point would be that if there was a product, and there are products in the market which are very much look like slates that are solar panels, if that product was being applied on this application, my objection to it would be a lot lower, and I would most probably support it. But that is not the case. We are using a conventional black solar panel product, and I think it would have a detrimental impact on the conservation area as a result of that, and that's why I urge the committee to oppose it.
Thank you very much, both of you. Now we come to the discussion. Councillor Blanco.
Yeah, I read the discussion, and obviously people were concerned with the visual impact of the panels, hence it's being revisited. Unfortunately, Councillor Nasinda's not here today, but she was one ward council actually supported the scheme, as I recall, and so did I. I supported it, I think, on the grounds that I think my view of the impact visually at that time was it would have a minimal impact. With the annex building being approved subsequently, I can't see how you can justify significance of any impact whatsoever in view of the fact that the annex is between this building with the solar panels and the actual main view from the road at the bottom. Yes, you get a view as you're up, a side view as you're going up South Green Road, but actually the main view was from the road on the entrance of the nature reserve. In terms of the principle, I supported the principle, and I referred people to Neas, where I go through regularly on the X5, and on I think it's even Soken part of St Neas, on the main road there are solar panels sort of hit you in the face as you're going past on a regular basis. Now, whether there's been some sort of group there putting it forward as a sort of community concern and community sort of initiative, fine, that's up to them. But in terms of visual impact, a main road such as that, in visual terms, would have a pretty big impact. And I, for one, I'm not offended at all when I go past on a regular basis. I would not be offended if this annex wasn't there, but with the annex there, I can't see how any reasonable person could be offended, to be honest.
Councillor Smart.
I think I take somewhat the opposite view. So I did say at the last time it came that slates are available. They have been available for a long time, so as the Speaker spoke of them as being a new thing, but they're not really new at all. So let's correct that. Unless
You mean slates as solar panels?
Slates as solar panels, unless the officer has anything to say on that. I think the Speaker was slightly wrong there to suggest that slates are new and panels are old. They're both available. My feeling is that, although I accept what Councillor Blanco said about the other building being next to it, it is something of a close call, I guess. I do feel that this is a large solar array. It's 15 panels, supposedly, although I'm not quite sure of that. I'll come back to that in a minute. And when normally, on a normal domestic roof, it will be 10 to 12, producing this 3.6 kilowatts. So it's quite a big array. And normally, as I just said, they're higher up on the top of domestic roofs, not low level on top of basically sheds, directly in your line of sight. And also directly in your line of sight, as Councillor Cantrell has said about, being on South Green Road is just a bad place to have it. So I think that could have been mitigated by a different arrangement of collecting solar energy, and that's all possible. And I'm surprised that hasn't been done really. So, and also just so the officer could make it clear, the drawing, the revised drawing, shows 14 panels on a sort of pencil drawing scheme, whereas the additional information says 15 panels. So I don't know if one's a spare in the shed or something, but 14 are shown. And also the sizes don't really fit because 0.8 by 1.6 square meters sizes, almost always panels are arranged on roofs to be set in slightly from the roof, so to allow some space around the edge. And that isn't the case, so if anything they overlap as far as I can see. It would be 2.4 metres, whereas 2.38 metres is shown, and 8 metres, whereas 7.51 metres is shown. So effectively the panels are going to be overlapping the roof, which is not the way to lay them. So I know that's a technical point, but I think the applicant needs to know what they're doing to do this job correctly, and as far as I can see, they don't. And also, I just concur with Councillor Cantrell. I think this is an inappropriate scheme for this particular site, although, as he said, and as I agree, we're all in favour of solar panels, but not in this format. So I'll vote against.
I shall also vote against. I shall vote against because it's unfortunate, but I think photovoltaic panels do have a monotonous singular colour, which particularly in conservation areas is at the level of the expanse which is envisaged in this particular application is wholly unacceptable. I mean, I've just been looking at what 20 square metres takes up of that wall, and it takes up most of that wall. 20 square metres is most of that wall. So, you know, we are talking about a major eyesore in a conservation area. I might take a very different view of this were it not in a conservation area. But what does conservation status mean? Why do we have it? And we have it because we acknowledge that there are areas of the city which have a particular quality that needs to be specially protected. And I think this applies with great force in this particular instance. And I hope members will reject this application. Councillor Tunnicliffe.
Can we see a diagram or CGI showing this new consulting room building in place with, so you've got it there on the right, but can we see the garage with its solar panels? I'm getting what I mean. I'm looking up the road, and on the right there is a new consulting room, and behind it is a building with panels. To what extent can we see those panels
From the road.
from the road as you walk up?
Company Chair, just to clarify that the annex is a consent which was granted in September of this year, and it hasn't been constructed. So although it's a material consideration, the assessment should be on the basis of what's there on the ground at the moment. So I don't have a photograph or a CGI showing the two together.
So does that mean that the site is more open than it would have been had that annex been built?
The site as it is at the moment is with the existing consulting room. The annex would be a slightly higher building because it's got a pitch roof, and it would also be closer to the garage. But that's just improved scheme that's not actually been built yet.
The salt room's there.
Is there any further contribution? Your light is on. I think we've heard enough about this, and we've discussed it before on a previous occasion. You're all invited to vote afresh in the light of the discussion today, of course, but I'm now going to put the matter to you. The officer recommendation is one of approval. Those of you who support that, please indicate. We have 2. Those against, please indicate. We have 5. So now we have to vote on the reasons for refusal. I'm going to adjourn the meeting for a few minutes while we draw up the reasons. We're now going to, we're very grateful to our officers for producing the form of words which in planning terms encapsulates our feelings. So here we are. What is the wording you suggest?
It would be due to the extent and monotonous appearance of solar panels on the south-facing roof slope of the building, the development would have a harmful visual impact in the street and be detrimental to the character and appearance of the conservation area. The development would therefore be contrary to policies 3.7, 3.14 and 4.11 of the Cambridge Local Plan 2006.
Could I ask you to insert the word "the proposed solar panels," because without that it suggests that all solar panels we haven't, which is precisely the case we didn't want to make. So the proposed solar panels are the ones which are giving us difficulty. Thank you. Is that an acceptable formulation of the...
Just a small point, I suppose the technical word is solar array. Everybody call them panels, but it's up to you.
Yeah, well, we'll leave it up to the officer. So that is the reason then for the refusal, and we now come on to the next one. Oh, we must vote on that as being the reason. Please sit down, Mr. Jones. The suspense has not yet ended. That is the reason we should advance, and which we are prepared as an authority to defend. Those in favour of that as the reason for refusal, please indicate. That is 6-1. Sorry, those against? Abstain. So 6 and 1 abstain.